Armored Saint was formed in 1981 by the Sandoval brothers, guitarist Phil and drummer Gonzo. They'd then bring on guitarist Dave Prichard and vocalist John Bush, as well as bassist Joey Vera. Gonzo would come up with the name Armored Saint after seeing the 1981 John Borman fantasy film Excalibur.
Our group originated out of friendship in high school. We started playing the clubs around LA, and pretty soon we got pretty popular and our following kept growing.
A 1982 demo would get the band featured on the Metal Blade Records compilation album Metal Massacre 2. Followed by a self-titled EP. Coming in at under 12 minutes long, the EP, also released by Metal Blade, is a short but adrenaline-charged sampling of the band. Even though this is an EP, this is a great place to start with Armored Saint. Metal Blade knew how to record a metal album and showcase the band's strengths. In 1984, Armored Saint would get the opportunity to sign with a semi-major record label. However, UK-based Chrysalis Records would turn out to be an odd fit, considering the label isn't exactly known for its metal roster. In fact, Armored Saint is the only American metal band they'd ever signed. March of the Saint, Armored Saint's debut album, came out in 1984 to positive reviews and decent sales, despite a difficult recording experience for the band.
Chrysalis is a great record label. The only problem is that they just were naive back then about heavy rock. And, with us, they were always just scratching their heads like, what do we do with these guys?
Working with a producer they didn't see eye to eye with didn't help either. Joey Vera said, "One day he told us that he didn't like Black Sabbath. From that day on, it was like, you just don't get it." The whole thing was a great big slap in the face. Suddenly, we had all of these outside people slowing tempos down, making things overly polished, trying to manufacture a sellable item. Still, this is not a bad album. The production could have been better.
Maybe it should have came out on Metal Blade. Sorry, Chrysalis, but can you say?
But there are still some great tracks on here, including the single Can You Deliver, which also got a music video straight from the post-apocalypse. The video sees the band roaming the barren wasteland. Gonzo and Joey are in some kind of Mad Max vehicle. John is wandering through the forest in a cloak. Dave is revving up his motorcycle. And Phil emerges from the bog as the skies turn red. They all come together. John loses his cloak at some point, and lightning starts to crash as a giant knight in the sky throws a sword down into the ground before them. The knight flexes behind them while the band grab onto the sword like they're deciding who bats first before a pickup baseball game. The guys all look at each other in confusion for a moment. Before they start rocking out, suddenly on stage somewhere. It's unclear if they've been sent back in time or if this club is meant to be in the same post-apocalyptic universe as the opening, but either way, the band is still wearing their post-apocalyptic gear and everyone seems fine with it.
Here's your chance to please. Can you deliver? Can you deliver? Can you deliver?
Armored Saint's second album, Delirious Nomad, came out in October of 1985. This time, the band had Ozzy Osbourne producer Max Norman on board to help them get the sound they wanted. And the production does sound better suited to Armored Saint on this album, with a focus on straightforward, riff-oriented power rock with some bluesy grooves thrown in, and sweet guitar solos. One disappointing thing about this album, though, is that the band decided not to do any music videos after they were told MTV was canceling its heavy metal programming.
What about video stuff? Anything in the works?
No, nothing for this record. We chose not to do one. We just wanted to save money and use it in other areas such as touring and a bit more in advertising.
6 months after Delirious came out, MTV added metal programming back into their program. We were pissed. Delirious Nomad is good, but probably won't blow anyone away. It is worth checking out though, and definitely has some highlights. During the recording of this album, guitarist Phil Sandoval would decide to leave the band or be asked to leave for personal reasons. There's not a lot of information about why this happened. Phil only says that he went through some dark times. Armored Saint would record their third album, Raising Fear, as a four-piece. They'd continue to have issues with their label during the recording process, including an ill-advised Lynyrd Skynyrd cover forced upon them.
It's a Saturday night to special. Got a barrel that's a fluid cold.
Leading to an uneven album with good production and a handful of above-average tracks. We thought we made a great record. When I hear it now, I can hear all the confusion and second guessing. It's my least favorite of all of our catalog. After Raising Fear's release, Armored Saint would be dropped by Chrysalis Records. It's really a shame they went with Chrysalis to begin with, since the creative disagreements left the band feeling unguided with a sound that could be hard to pin down.
We describe our music as groove-orientated hard rock. Most of the time it's obviously pretty heavy, and we like to exude a lot of power.
Full of aggression and full of like rebellious connotations, and hopefully it's what the kids want and what the parents don't.
Armored Saint's sound and style is very diverse, so we try to grow on that and expand on that. But you know, we've been called everything from hard rock to heavy metal to power metal. I don't know, I hate categories, but it's Armored Saint.
Armored Saint would be dealt another huge blow when guitarist Dave Prichard was diagnosed with leukemia. The group had already started writing for another album, but Dave would pass away from the disease in 1990 before they'd get a chance to record. John Bush said in an interview with LA Weekly, "I was just super despondent at the time, but we said, we've got these songs, we can't let that fall by the wayside. Dave would hate us." After all of the toil we went through and the hard work we did to write these songs with Dave through his illness, they just took on another meaning with us. We had no label because we got dropped from Chrysalis. We were just about to quit altogether, but Metal Blade came back and told us that we had to put out this record, which Dave had also worked so hard on writing. With the full support of Metal Blade Records and determined to move forward, Armored Saint would get Phil back in the band and would also add an additional guitarist.
Jeff Duncan, who played in a local band called Odin, who played a lot of shows with Armored Saint back in the early days.
To record Armored Saint's fourth album, Symbol of Salvation. To me, this sounds like the album they'd been trying to make for 10 years.
When you hear the trail of tales round and get you're in a rain of fire, spells and magic in a rain of fire.
John's uniquely growly vocals sound amazing, and the mix is clean and heavy.
See with all a strong need to bathe in God.
While Along with Reign of Fire, we'd also get a music video for my favorite Armored Saint track, Last Train Home. Of course, if your metal song mentions a train, there must be trains in the video. So here we see the band all rocking out in a dusty old train station with John in his 90s jeans. When I think about Armored Saint, this is the album I think about. It's great from start to finish, and while it didn't receive a lot of attention upon its release, it's since become regarded as something of an overlooked classic album. Also, returning to Metal Blade allowed for a much less stressful recording process for this album.
Well, this is Metal Blades. You know, this is their baby. They know what to do with this kind of music.
It was only around Symbol of Salvation that we started to not really worry about fitting in with the scene. We just said, let's be us. I really think Symbol of Salvation is the perfect example of that. Still, with an underperforming album that they'd poured their heart and souls into, the band was probably emotionally drained. There was maybe this delusion that after everything we had been through, that we were finally going to make it big, and then it didn't happen. It created this turmoil and tension that may have been just a natural response to everything that had happened to make the record. With their future uncertain to begin with, they finally made the decision to disband completely when John got offered to replace Joey Belladonna as the frontman for Anthrax. We were at a point where we were not sure if we could keep going. Then John got the call. I felt that he might regret not taking the offer if our band just fizzled out, so I gave him my blessing to make a move. Once he did, I was quite relieved, as I was so tired of the frustration surrounding Saint. It was time to move on. However, before they broke up, they would make time to make a quick appearance in Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth in 1992. Through the rest of the 90s, everyone would go on to other musical projects. John in Anthrax, Joey would play in bands like Fate's Warning and release a solo album, the Sandoval brothers would start a band called Life After Death, and Jeff Duncan would join a band called DC4 with his brothers Sean and Matt. However, in 1999, John had some downtime from Anthrax, and Armored Saint would reform with the entire Symbol of Salvation lineup to return to the studio and record Revelation, released in March of 2000. Their sixth album, still on Metal Blade, picks up where Symbol of Salvation left off, at least from a hard rock spirit and production standpoint. It's an easy enough album to listen to, but just never quite reaches the same songwriting heights as Symbol of Salvation for me.
Inside, you will find all that you need in the den of things.
After a 9-year break, they'd follow this up with 2010's La Raza. This album finally gets another music video with the black and white boxing-themed left hook from right field. We see a boxer getting ready for a fight and he goes out to the ring. He takes a few punches and gets knocked down pretty quickly. He manages to get back up, only to be wailed on some more, Raging Bull style.
Left hook from right field, left out with no appeal.
He gets knocked down again and apparently has a dream about Joey Bush in a suit giving him a pep talk.
It's not between some so-called father and I. It's not between me and some lady in the sky. Whether my heart is good, it's good.
The boxer starts fighting again, and we see that he's battling different religious authority figures. He knocks them out cold and gives himself a fist bump. Armored Saint's most recent album is 2015's Win Hands Down. Each of the 21st Century Armored Saint albums have some good stuff on them, with some progressive elements here and there. But of the three, I definitely recommend this one. The more progressive elements are utilized nicely here, and John Bush's voice just continues to sound better with age. Armored Saint has another album planned to come out in October of 2020, so I'm excited to check it out and see where they go. Plus, that gives you just enough time to study up on their catalog. Check out the Armored Saint EP, the debut album March of the Saint, Symbol of Salvation of course, and Win Hands Down. And that's Armored Saint. Check them out for some old school power metal, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.